Hello and welcome to Basement Fodder, the only show whose hosts want to burn to the ground the tiny house nation. I'm Todd.
I'm Dave.
Fucking tiny house nation. What the fuck did we watch?
Oh, man. So, we got stuck on, what was it, DIY channel. We love the Treehouse show.
Yeah, oh god,
that show's awesome.
Show. It's awesome.
Well, this one was like, there's that new thing now where people are,
hipsters are obsessing hipsters and greenies.
Greenie. I don't
have a problem with the greenies. It's the hipsters that bother me.
It was a greenie thing where it's like they started paring down and basically, figuring out that there's less. They could get out of debt quicker. They could be less reliant on things. If they got smaller houses, we're talking.
They could go off the grid.
Yeah. But just different things like that. Where I was like, necessity-wise, do they need these huge-ass houses? Mm-hmm. And they decided no, they didn't, and they started getting like these smaller houses, like ranging from like 300 to like 700 square feet type houses and stuff.
Let me preface this by saying I have no problem with that. No, like that's a noble thing to do.
Yeah.
If you are of the mindset of the greenies, I agree with you.
Yeah.
This is not what we're talking about.
Yeah. There's apparently DIY. This is a big thing now. They're like the tiny house movement is the thing. And they have a lot of shows about it. Like there's Tiny World or Tiny House World. And then there's another one where they like come in and basically build you a tiny house.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of these, and usually and I've gone online and checked out some of these, and there's like the log cabins and stuff. They're usually like 1 bedroom, 1 bath, half story, like 1.5 story, different things like that that are pretty cheap actually. And they're really nice. And it's like if you have that mindset where you want to be less reliant and you want to have less of a impact, emissions and carbon, all that stuff on the world, then this is a way people are going. I've seen the 1 bedroom spheres that they hang in the trees, all kinds of crazy things. Well, the show where they come out and build your little tiny house, it's kind of one of those like, we'll trick your tiny house out. And it's cool, but the problem is this is being overtaken now by a lot of these like live in the now hipster type, like what's the trend? And this like will trick your tiny house show, I think is like it's the best people that do it, but the worst people that are on it.
Yeah.
Because it's like
these people have no concept of what it means to live this way.
They don't. And like it's interesting to watch because the guy who like kind of runs the show, like there's the guy who is like the builder and the idea guy, then there's the other guy who actually like deals with the people and does all that stuff.
He's like the host and
and he's actually having to like take these people and be like, okay, this is the life you live now I'm going to take you to an area that's about the size of your new house, and you're going to have to like, because it's like if you throw parties or you have a family or all this other shit, here's what it's going to be like in that setting. Like, is this, which I think is good, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those, like, you're doing this while you're building this house.
Yes.
I feel like this is
it's
something.
It's a little late for that, isn't it?
And it's always so interesting when these people's reactions of like, oh my God, it was so much more cramped than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I can give you an example. Like the first episode we watched with these this like dunderfuck couple, the hipster couple. With
it was like
the 2 hipsters and a dog.
The dog was cute.
And the dog was the smartest one out of all of them. And so the 2 hipsters, they have a house, and it looks nice. It's a very nice house. Doesn't look old, doesn't look fucked up at all, whatever, in a nice neighborhood. So they decide that they want to switch down to a tiny house. So they want to build this tiny house in their backyard of their currently existing house.
Yeah. And it was really weird because they're like super like, oh, we have wine parties and all this stuff. And the host came in and he had one of those like shopping carts.
The tiny ones.
The tiny
like you would let your kid push around with a double decker on it.
Yeah. He comes in with that and he has 6 paper bags and basically hands them to him. And he's like, you got to put your house in this. Like you have to pare down. Like this is what we can feasibly really put in your house. And
these motherfuckers are debating on putting a pasta maker in one of these bags and shit.
Yeah,
like how many bottles of wine can we take?
They literally filled up all 6 bags just in their kitchen. Yeah. And they were like, oh, shit.
And the guy, you can tell the guy is like, fucking morons.
And he's done this. Like, every episode I've watched, he does this. God. And it's like, this is that, oh, my God, shocker face. And I'm like... Did you just happen to read an article a couple months ago about, like, tiny houses, and you're like, yes. Oh, my God, I think this would be the greatest thing.
Yeah, you said this last night. You're like, I think this bitch just one day Googled, like, tiny houses because she saw a commercial or something and was like, all right, we're totally doing this.
This is the thing. We're still going to be good for the world. And it's like, no, you're not. Because, like, even she said it on the show, the amount of waste that from that project, she was like, holy crap, I'm surprised. And the guy was like, yeah, if you had time, like if we had time, we would have people going through all this stuff and making sure everything gets used.
Yeah.
He's like, but that's not the case.
There was something like 3 truckloads full of waste product coming out of building this tiny house that's supposed to be
it's under 500 square feet.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be helping with conservation. I'm like, boy, you're not conserving shit, are you?
And then it's like, these people...
Why hipsters shouldn't do this shit.
Yeah, and then the people are stupid because apparently they throw all these fucking like wine drinking parties all the time, so they need, plenty of space for people to crash when they're stupid drunk.
Yes. They were like, okay, so we're going to build this tiny house for just, like, us and our dog. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's fine, 2 people and a dog, right? Then they're like, but we need, like, the ability to sleep up to 6 people because we have lots of guests.
Yeah. And they're like, what? They're like, we need you to build a second loft. And, I need a study nook. Mm-hmm. And, like, all kinds of other stuff. And, like, the people are like, are you fucking
Now, I give it up to this motherfucker that builds these houses. He's a goddamn genius.
Oh, spatial genius.
Yeah, I mean, like, talk about, like, ways to figure out how to do shit or whatever and build a lot of shit into a small space. The guy's a fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
But these morons are not going to do well in this house.
No.
My favorite part is, like, the second loft that they built, right? You look at they do the camera, they're like, there's so much space up there. I'm not shitting you, dude. A fucking small child would have to stoop to get in this room for one thing. And another thing, the only way to get to this room is a rope ladder.
Yeah.
A rope ladder in your house.
And the opening to get into said loft looks like the opening you have to, like, throw shit up into your attic.
Seriously, the basement baby could barely get through that fucking thing. You could barely fit through that.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, it's cool. And then, like, they're like, oh, well, we need a table. And then they decide they want to suspend a 150-pound steel table from the ceiling that comes down on winches.
Winches that are, like, built into the wall.
And
like,
loud
big,
as
giant fucking controllers and shit.
Yeah.
Loud as fuck. And then when you bring it down, like, there's no stairs in this house, obviously.
There's just ladders.
There's just ladders. The one ladder's a regular ladder, then the other one's the rope ladder. Well, where the table comes down, the ladder, like, butts it against it. So these fucking wine-drinking fucks have to climb over this thing to get to their dinner table. And you could tell every time they did it, they were just about to ass out. And it was hilarious. I was just waiting for them to just face plant on this shit. And then this is what cracked me up. Like the inspector came to look at the house, and he's like, "Okay, you have to have like an access port to the under, like in the middle of the thing. It has to have like a trap door." And they're like, "Shit! Like, where are we gonna put this trap door? It's got to be right here, you know, in the middle of the kitchen, basically." So the guy was like, "Okay, well they're winos or whatever. So I'm gonna build them like a wine cabinet here."
And he did. It did an awesome
badass.
job.
It was like plexiglass and fucking steel. Yeah. And I'm like, if you need something like this, you should not be in a fucking tiny house.
Yeah.
But like,
you're like, I need a wine cellar. Like, why are you in this tiny house? Like, this is stupid.
They get them in there, and then they leave for 3 weeks, and they come back to talk to them about how they're adjusting to their tiny house life.
They left for a day.
Yeah, no shit, right? They said 3 weeks.
3 weeks, my ass. They left for a day.
So they're like, oh, we have our friends over all the time, and then they have their friends like supposedly sleeping in these beds, and then one of them is like, okay, one of them is like a bed that like a trundle that pulls out
from
like
under
a drawer,
the other bed.
Yeah, that pulls out from another space that, like, basically it's like a fucking weird little couch that they made, which like I've seen these couches before, they're not comfortable.
No.
And they like these little bolster type things that they all square together and it makes a bed. So there's one person sleeping, quote unquote, on that one, and one sleeping in the trundle, and they're both in their full like clothing.
She was, I don't believe that she was
wearing a scarf.
Yeah, scarf. Like, what the shit is that? And I'm like, okay, it's not like they're both humongous fucking people. Like, the guy's a little portly, but like the girl, they both could have slept on just the one bed. They didn't need to bring both beds out. It was like they were just like,
it was obviously very staged.
Yeah, it was very staged as fuck. But it was just the funny thing about it was, like, at the end, the people are talking about it like, oh yeah, we've been and I'm like, they were kind of basically like kind of talking shit about the house in like
you could tell the hipsters hated it and they regretted this decision heavily.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like the other house is still sitting there and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna last about a month in this tiny house and then you're gonna be like, let's move back into the big house
and then rent the tiny house out to somebody.
Tiny house out to some other hipster that's stupid.
Yeah.
And I just think this shit was fucking hilarious. Like, they don't, like, okay, if you're deciding, okay, this is my life now, I'm going to pare down, I'm going to fucking go off the grid, like, I'm going to change my life and, like, be, completely self-sufficient, all that shit, more power to you, man, but make a fucking informed decision. Like, these morons, I swear, like you say, they fucking Googled this one day and then just decided to do it.
Like they were at a wine party. They were at a wine party and they're like, oh, did you hear what my cousin did? And then it was like, oh, did I forget to mention my cousin lives out in the woods and is like a fucking, survivalist type person?
Yes.
Like,
and for those kind of people, this thing's perfect. Like, if you're that kind of person who wants to be completely self-sufficient and you have no bones about, like, possessions and shit like that, this is your fucking life, man. This is perfect for you. But if you're a fucking, 20-something hipster that is like, we're married with a dog and he's our child, like, okay, you don't fucking need to do this, seriously. And this was not a small dog either. I want to mention that too. This is not a fucking small dog. This was like a big Labrador. Like, I think it was a Labrador. Yeah. Whatever. It was the size of a Labrador at least. And I'm like, come on, dude. Fucking... this big ass dog in there, and then one of the things they're complaining about is like there's no separation in there because it's a loft where they sleep, and the beds are everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, there's no fucking separation. You don't have any rooms, damn it. It's just one fucking giant room.
They're like,
not even giant, it's one tiny room.
Yeah, they're like, oh, when the dog barks, everybody wakes up. And I was like, well, yeah, like when a dog barks in a fucking shed, it's come on, what the fuck?
They're in there trying to sleep and drink wine and shit. The dog's like, why is everybody living in my house?
Yeah. Like, this is my house, asshole. What the fuck?
But the other one that we watched was, I think, almost much worse.
It was worse. Okay, because
I hate to say this, but I wanted to slap this girl so hard, like, through the entire episode.
I think her mom wanted to, too.
I'm like, okay, and then they're talking about, she's like she was like a dancer or something like that, but then she also is like going for her doctorate in like physics or some like astrophysics or some shit like that. I'm like, how could you simultaneously be incredibly intelligent and really fucking stupid?
It's actually really easy.
Oh my god, the
common sense is not necessarily related to book smarts.
Holy balls. She was already living in a 600 square foot guest house on her grandpa's property, right? With two little kids, two little boys. Toddlers, right? There was barely enough room in the fucking house they were already in. And that's small enough. A lot of these small houses are that size.
Yeah, they range between, usually they're more like 4 to 6, and she was wanting something that's in the 300 range. Literally what they did, her idea was they were taking 2 trailers, and not like you think like trailer park trailers. No, they were taking like Airstream, basically. Yeah, they were like 2, like, I don't even know if they were like Airstream. They looked like they were 2 more pack
really
trailers.
Small.
Yeah, like pack trailers. And they were putting them together, and it was going to be for her and the 2 kids. But not only that, she's one of these like, I have a raw diet and like I use a dehydrate. Like, she had fuck tons of heavy electrical fucking
dehydrator
shit.
Was as big as her fucking refrigerator. I was like, Jesus, that thing's massive.
And she had basically professional juicers, mixers, fucking all kinds of stuff. And
watching the host guy go in this house and seeing this shit was hilarious because like she's like, these are all like essential things, and the look on his face is just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Oh no!
Like,
and then,
are you fucking kidding me?
Throughout the whole process, she just keeps coming out with, and I need this, and I need this. And this has to be in there, and then I need this, and my family's not on board.
No shit.
And stuff, and it's stupid.
Because they're smarter than you.
Yeah. So she cuts down from like most of the electronics to getting like a sun oven, which they even said, they're like, this is a great idea as long as the sun's out. So there's that. She gets solar panels put on her on top of her trailer, which they're like, that's a really great idea. Really great idea. This is Southern California. This is where it's taking place, Southern California. So that's great. It's sunny a lot of the time. Yes. That stuff will work. They sloped the top of the trailers so that way the other thing that she wanted to do was she didn't want to rely on like plumbing in that sense, that she wanted to be all like rainwater. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets retarded. You live in Southern California, which is going through
where trees catch fire because there's not enough water.
Yeah, where you're going through a drought. And you're basically saying your entire water supply is reliant on rainwater. Yeah. Okay.
All of it.
So they were like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Nobody commented on that. Nobody brought that shit up. Then she basically decides that the biggest room in the house has to be her boys' room, which makes sense. You got two kids.
That's fine.
But then they go with bunk beds, like push-up bunk beds and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay.
First of all, one of these kids is like 2 years old. You're going to put him in a bunk bed? Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, they had
bars on it. I fell asleep. Yeah. Just preface, I fell asleep before the end of this one. I think I rage passed out.
Yeah. The one on the top had this like kind of foldable guardrail thing around it and stuff that's fine. So, yeah, it'd be great. But it's like, even her mom brought it up. She's like, kids need space. Like, you're going to try and shove two eventually teenage boys in this.
Oh, that'll never last that long.
No, it'll never. No, it won't. But then she is like, in my room, I need a bed. I need a desk so I can study. I need a place where I can do dance and yoga and like all this shit. And they're like, are you fucking kidding me?
I see. If the poor guy who's building the thing, like his facial expressions for this thing are so fucking awesome.
Because she just kept showing up while he's building stuff. Like, oh, by the way, I want this added onto it too. I want this like outdoor cooking area. And they're like, oh, well, we'll have this big, thing for your water and stuff. And then she was like,
that was the best part. They're up on the roof. Like, it's the builder, the host, and the guy who's helping build the rainwater thing. Yeah. And they're up on the roof of the little house, and like they're talking about how awesome this is and like what a really cool like engineering feat it is, because it is. Like, the way that they did it was epic. It was like foam and fucking rubber and shit, and like strong but soft and all that, like just really fucking brilliant shit. Yeah. Like, these guys are fucking amazing. And he's like, okay, well, what are we gonna put the rainwater in? And he's like, well, they use rain barrels for that, like 500
gallon thing. And he's
like, yeah, well, she doesn't want that because she wants like an entertaining area outside. And I'm like, this bitch has friends. And then fucking. He's like, so that's not going to work. And the builder guy's just got this look in his face like, what the fuck else could this crazy bitch ask for? Because so he's like, fine, whatever. And then, like, he devises, like, ingenious way.
Really ingenious way.
Yeah, very ingenious way.
But again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's full ingenious will not get used because you are in Southern California. He basically comes up with these he finds these 100-pound plastic, like industrial plastic bags that he basically puts 3 in a bench, and he makes 2 benches and stuff, so he can hold up to 600 gallons of water,
which will never get full.
Will never get full because this is Southern California. The amount of times it rains, especially now because of climate, is very.
My God, man! There's a song from the '60s that I used to listen to when I was in my oldies phase called "It Never Rains in Southern California." Like,
yeah. So
seriously,
it seems like she was talking about like tearing down and doing all this stuff of like, oh, we're going with this such minimalist, blah 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 blah. But to get around all that, she's shoving shit and hooking it on the outside of her fucking thing. She's like, okay, well, I need this on the top and then this on the side, and then I figure we can just add this to the side. And it's like, okay, but now you're defeating the purpose.
She's trying to create some sort of weird hipster shanty town. Like, I don't know what the fuck she's trying to do.
Like.
So they get her, like, her grandpa, who, like, that's the land that she's on. Her grandpa,
who's a hoarder.
Who's like an 80-year-old hoarder. Her mom, who's very sensible. Yeah. And who's like, the guy was like, did she grow up in a small house? And the mom's like, no, she grew up in a house with 7 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms.
Yeah.
And then
her mom's just like, she's just weird.
Her best friend, who was like effeminate common.
But it was nobody's on board.
They were all smarter than her.
Like, they're all like, this is going to be damn.
Especially the best friend was cracking me up because they give, like, instead of the trash bags this time or the garbage
2
bags or whatever,
crates.
they're like, here's 2 plastic, like, fucking bin crates, and not even like the big bins like we use here,
like the medium, smaller
like there's
size.
Ones that like the post office uses that has like the foldable tops and shit.
Yeah.
No, like, you have to fit all your shit into these two things. This is clearly your shit and the kid's shit.
Yeah.
And two of these things. And the guy, her best friend, like, fucking effeminate comment was like, no.
Yeah.
This ain't gonna happen.
Luckily, the grandfather kind of got on board like it was Tetris and, you know, started being like, okay, well, you don't need this and you don't need that and stuff. Because, like, the host went in and saw the grandfather's house and he was like, wow. And he's like, yeah, it's stuff I've all accumulated. I'm 80 years old.
Yeah, he's like, how'd you get all this stuff? He's like, 80 years worth of life.
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing. That's why he's like, that's the other problem too, is like, the family aspect. You're choosing this life for your kids. You're basically telling these kids, hey, guess what? All your favorite things will eventually have to be like thrown out.
Yeah, I feel this is being a crappy parent because like,
the mom kind of was like, kind of saying that, like, oh, by the way, that was the other thing too. Not only does she have a dehydrator and all these things for her, they asked about, well, do you feed your kids this raw diet stuff? And she was like, no, but that brings up a good point. I'm also going to need a stove and a top and stuff. And the guy's like,
So the solution to this is like they give her
the sun oven.
The sun oven and this like
which was her idea.
The sterno alcohol burner.
Yeah.
Like it's a coil burner or whatever that runs on sterno alcohol and shit.
That's actually stuff she brought. She showed up with this list of like the oven burner or the sun burner, the sun panels, the rainwater thing, and the like alcohol. Because she's like, it all has to be renewable stuff. And I'm just like, oh
you
my
need
God.
some renewable brain cells.
I was like, you have a hairy chin spot and you're fucking stupid. Oh my God. Like I was defending her mom.
Here's the other thing about this chick. Is it me or did she dress like a 5-year-old child?
She did dress like a 5-year-old child.
Okay, you know how like little girls, they'll have those like little baby doll kind of like outfit, like skirts and stuff that are way too short, but it's for a little kid, so whatever. She wore like those, leggings. And she was wearing, those with leggings, and then she was wearing like little jumpers that was like one piece, like little shorts that are connected to a little shirt. Like she seriously looked like she was wearing Oshkosh Bagosh for hipsters.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like I was like, what the
retro
fuck? And I just love her mother through this whole thing because they keep bringing her mother out there to try to get her on board, and the host is like trying to extol the virtues of tiny houses and shit, and the mom's like, yeah, that's all well and good, but it's not for her, and she just doesn't get that. Like,
well, she's like, and her mom's like, it'd be like if it was just her, fine, I could be on board. But she has 2 kids, 2 toddlers, 2 boys, and it's like even what they do with the room for the kids is cool. They end up having a desk that shifts into 2 desks, but I'm like, okay, sibling rivalry, 2 teenage boys, they're only about a year apart. They're going to be living on top of each other in a fucking shack.
It's going to be Lord of the Flies up in that bitch.
They're going to fucking kill each other. Yeah. And they're going to fucking resent their mom because this is what they had to live in. They're going to be like, I can't bring any of my friends over. Like, you know.
There's the one part they're like showing the guys are showing this inventive table thing or whatever. She's like, yeah, I need like a bigger table because like, what if I want to have a dinner party? And the mom's like, a dinner party? Are you shitting me? Like, a dinner party?
That's the thing too.
Bitch, she's are you retarded? Like,
if you wanted all this,
sorry,
why are you doing? Like, it was just one of those things where it's like, I feel like if the host has to set you up in a mock, dinner party scenario so you can understand the grasp of like the space that you're going into, you have no business doing this.
Yeah, this is not a decision that can be made lightly.
No.
You have to research and you have to figure out, can I realistically live this way?
Yeah.
Can I live with a minimal amount of things and a minimal amount of space with what my life entails?
Yeah.
No is the answer to both of these motherfuckers that we watched. Like, both of these episodes, I'm like, no is the answer on both of these. And I would guarantee that both of these fucking sets of people will not last more than a year in this shit. I mean, am I wrong?
Oh, yeah.
There's no fucking way.
There's no way.
Especially the first people. The first people look like they were ready to move back into their house right now.
The winos, no. The mother is delusional. Once the kids start getting old enough, they're going to belittle the shit out of her.
Oh, God,
like, what the fuck?
Like, can we go live with grandma?
Like, can we go live with grandpa? Somebody, has a fucking house? Like, I'm like, you get your room. that has all your amenities that you need to come to your Zen place, blah, 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 blah. But then you want to fucking sardine can your kids in there so they don't have that.
Yeah.
And, like, as a kid, my greatest, other than being outside, was my room.
Yeah, it's your fucking sanctuary, man.
That's your zone. And when you have a younger sibling shoved up your ass, that immediately takes that away.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm like, you're going to breed worse sibling rivalry.
Oh, God,
in your kids.
Your kids are going to hate each other, and they're going to hate you.
Yeah. It's going to be like, thanks, Mom.
It was ridiculous, and I was just, like, infuriated by the entire process of it.
Yeah. It's just...
I just, like, was like, are you fucking seriously shitting me?
Yeah. But then watching the one where it's like the tiny world nation thing or tiny house
I was
world.
not late for this one.
You were it was them in Australia, and there was a man and a woman and their female toddler, and they were shopping around for tinier houses, but theirs was a little bit more in the like
the realm of reality?
Yeah, like their house sizes were a lot bigger. They weren't like 3. They were looking more at like, I think between 5 and like 700 and stuff style size. But man, the prices they were looking, their price range was between 250 and 300,000. And that's like how much these people were charging for these tiny little like fucking shanty shacks and stuff.
Like, I don't understand. Like,
but it's Australian outback, and they were getting a ton of property too. And I know property's the premium price of what it is, so they could build things. But it seemed even like theirs were much more realistic. Like, they were more realistic in what they were looking for, what it needed to have. It's just one of those things where it was like, oh my God, like, this is not... I feel like this is a decision where it's like, if you're single and you can do it, cool. If it's couple and you both agree this is something you can do and you have it like an animal, that's cool. If you have a family, like especially more than one child and stuff like that, this is definitely something that you need to also talk to your kids about. Because, you think you might be able to do it, and your wife will probably be like, oh, yeah, we can do it. Or, your husband's like, yeah, we can do it. If you have at least like 2 or more kids, they're the ones, you'll be happy in your delusional, we can do this, but they're the ones that are going to be fucking like butting heads and constantly screaming at each other in your shanty shack. It's definitely something you need to equate everyone, to. But it was just, it's becoming one of those fads. Yep. It's like that's that new hip thing,
It's Chipotle.
It is. It's fucking, I need the Chipotle tiny house, maxi meal. Like, fuck me. Fuck. It's just...
I've seen burritos bigger than these houses.
Yeah, I have. Fucking... Oh, God.
I don't know. Like, this is, like I said, this is for some people. This is totally for some people. There are minimalist people, and there are people that are like, they don't need anything.
Me as myself.
I'm not the guy.
Yeah, I could do it. I love being outside. So that's the thing. I wouldn't spend all the time in the house. I'd be outside doing the stuff, but I would have just enough space that if I spent time in the house, I wouldn't go crazy.
Even you, though, you're a collector like I am, and you like to have a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And so even you, like, you would have to have bigger space than some of these people. Right?
Oh, yeah. My space, like, my tiny house wouldn't be like 300 square feet. It would be probably more around the, like, 700 to 800 square feet. That way I could have people over, and I could house, like, I might have to trim down some of my collection, but I'd still have it. That I know well enough with myself I could do that. But yeah, there's like some of these people that were ridiculously like, nope, I'm just gonna drop from like 1,800 square feet to 300.
All I need is my bottles of wine and my pasta maker and my dehydrator, and I'll be totally fine.
Yeah, but like, you'd be drunk enough to survive.
I just feel like I wish, this is one of those times where I'm watching TV where I wish I had the like superpower to enter the television and pimp slap people. Like,
pimp hand is strong.
Where are we gonna put our bottles of wine? Oh, who's that fat guy? Oh, why? Oh, that would make me so happy. I would be so happy.
Oh, yeah. Just, why.
I'd be like, why? And I'd be like, out. And then just step back out.
And now we know.
Now we do know. It was ridiculous. And I can say you're probably wondering why the fuck we were watching this show in the first place. Well, the cable box failed me, and I had set up the cable box to record Arrow as a series because we've been watching Arrow, together because I finally got caught up a few weeks ago. But for some reason, the cable box denied my request. I don't know why, and it didn't just acted like I never did it, but I totally did it. So we were like, fuck, we're screwed because we were trying to be watching the part 2 of the crossover between Flash and Arrow, because we'd seen part 1 on Tuesday night along with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was awesome. And fucking, so we're like, shit, there's something to watch, and that's what we ended up on, and I'm very sad for this. But I am glad we watched it in this. We were sitting there, and I go, well, it'll be good for the show. Like, that's all I could say.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I want to turn the channel, but I kind of want to watch this because it's pissing me off enough to where it'll be something funny to talk about. But so we had to wait until today to watch the second part of the crossover, which is weird because usually we're recording this at night and it's like 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So we did watch Tuesday night. We watched Flash, which is the first part of the Heroes United or something like that. What was the name of the crossover this year?
I think it was like Heroes Joined Forces or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was. The Flash episode, it was Tuesday, and then Wednesday was the Arrow episode. Also, Tuesday was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and since it's not connected to the other two, I think we should talk about it first.
Yes, we'll talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Good God, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, let's not pull out all
I think that the name of this episode would be Thou Shalt Not Fuck with Phil Coulson.
Yeah. In parentheses, goddamn.
Yeah, no, for fucking real.
Okay,
spoilers, if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this.
Yeah, because we're going to go all into this episode deep.
It's like, it starts out in Coulson and Hatchet-Faced Barnacle are having fucking, a.k.a. whatever the fuck her name was, Rosalind, are having their burger dinner in her house, and they're getting all cutesy-wootsy and shit, and it's like an episode of fucking Gilmore Girls.
But they're talking about the fact that she didn't know she was basically working for Hydra.
Yeah, which, if you didn't see last week's episode... Spoiler. Yeah.
Again, when we said spoilers, anyways.
Yeah, so they're getting all comfy cozy with the fucking cheeseburgers and just getting out some ketchup and talking and making little cutesy wootsies at each other and showing just how happy Phil's feeling right at that moment. And then
you hear a sound, and it's that familiar sound if you've watched any show where there's like snipers or tactical shit. It's that sound of a very fucking high caliber bullet going through a piece of glass, and then that sound of it hitting something. And then Coulson looks, and then looks over at Rosalind, who's now holding her throat because a bullet went through it, and she's just like. And fucking drops to the floor, and he's like losing his shit, losing his shit. And then guess who calls?
Grant Ward.
Grant Ward, who's holding the sniper gun, and was like, hey, buddy.
They show how far away he was, and it was fucked up. It was like, he looked like he was a mile away at least. It was insane.
It was probably well over a mile.
It was like, how does it feel to watch somebody you care about die in front of you, Phil? And I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. And
you unleashed the Coulson.
Yeah. And basically then he, Coulson's like, why don't you come here and fucking we'll settle this and stuff. And he's like, no, I got people to do that for me now. And then sends in a fucking hit team to fucking kill Coulson, which that team is immediately gets their ass handed to them. And in a very Coulson style way too. Very smart about it. Just kicks their ass. But basically takes his phone and sends a message need the extraction. Mac shows up and saves him, and then Mac's like, what about Rosalind? He's like, just drive.
Oh man.
Yeah, and Mac knows what's up. And when he gets back to headquarters, I mean, he's covered in her blood.
Yeah.
Head to toe covered in her blood. Doesn't say a single fucking thing, just walks by everyone, and everyone knows what has happened, and they're all just like, shit. And he just fucking loses his shit when he gets up to his thing. He rips his fucking shirt off because he can't stand the sight of the blood. Starts just fucking destroying everything. I mean, he just goes fucking buck shit. It's one of those. And
then he proceeds to interrogate every member of his original team.
Yeah.
About Ward.
Yeah, like everything they
and he's
know.
like, I'm going to have to ask uncomfortable questions. And it just starts like, hey, May, when you were sucking Ward's dick, like...
like, just no cells. And, like, fucking treats them all like they are, like, basically prisoners. Like, I will get the information I need out of you type stuff. And it was like, God damn. And it's just... It's brutal. Basically, he goes robotic. Like, he just shuts off and is just cold, calculating anger. And he basically... Hunter goes to apologize, like, I'm sorry. And, I mean, he fucking grabs Hunter by the throat, puts him up against the wall, and was like, I gave you your shot. You had fucking one shot. You were supposed to take him out. You didn't. And shit. And then he takes the robot hand and punches a hole through the fucking, like, brick beam. And fucking, it looked like Bobby for a minute. It was like, I don't want to have to beat you up, Coulson. And then he basically tells Hunter, he's like, well, guess what? You get one more fucking shot. Like, we're doing this.
We're doing
now.
This. Then he's like, fucking goes to his office with Mac, and he's like, I have to do things that the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. can't do, so now you're the director. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and Mac's like, what? And he's just like, no, this is how it's going down. And it gets fucking crazy. Yeah, like, it's a side of Coulson that I've never seen. Like, I knew it was coming, but it was just like, wow. And he takes Bobby and Hunter with them. Like, Bobby's like, no, and then he's like, oh no, you're coming too, because I need a pilot. Like, go now. And then, so what they end up doing is they end up kidnapping Grant Ward's only living relative, which is his younger brother. And that tends to fuck with Ward hard. Then they send in Fitz and Simmons to, with the ATCU guy, to an area where they used to like do some like NASA type shit. The ATCU guy gets a bullet to the head after he shoots everybody else, and they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm not doing it." And then out pops Mark Dacascos in his "I control stuff" kind of way.
Magneto,
yeah, it might be Magneto, Inhuman Magneto. And he basically kidnaps Fitz and Simmons, brings them to the area where Ward is at, which is also the same area where they're holding Andrew Lash. And basically they're going to send Lash the portal. And then this is where everything culminates and you find out the whole fucking story about Hydra, like why they're there, what has been going on with the planet. I mean, this is the full reveal.
Yep. Like,
this is everything. And they know that Fitz and Simmons are kidnapped, and so they're trying to figure out what they can do to get them back. And Mac, it's like he wants to make the choice. He knows what choice he needs to make, but it's like he doesn't feel comfortable making it. Yeah. And so he tries to call Coulson, and Coulson's like, do what you gotta fucking do, and then smashes the phone. Like, fuck you.
He's like, you're the fucking director.
You're the director. No, man the fuck up.
Man up, Ninny.
So they basically, on short notice, pull together a team to do a full-scale assault on Hydra.
Yeah.
Which it's 3 Inhumans, May, and a bunch of fucking like S.H.I.E.L.D. guys.
Yeah.
And they get Grant to fucking they get Grant to divulge where he's at because they make him talk to the brother because they convince the brother like that he needs to help them.
Yeah, because he's basically like, I want to stay the fuck away from him.
He's like, crazy. He's crazy. He tried to kill me.
He burned my brother to death. Like,
he pushed me down a well and then tried to tell me that he saved me and all kinds of shit. So they get him to fucking dime out Ward. Like, Ward stays on the phone too long and it gives them their position, and Ward's like, God damn it, I got played. I'm like, well, yeah, you're a dumbass. Because he thought that for a moment there, we thought Hunter and Coulson were gonna kill fucking his brother and shit. And Bobby's even like, we don't do that. And he's like, we do what we must.
Do what I must, yeah.
And she's just like,
bows.
So then they get to the area. Somehow the main Powers Booth's character convinces Ward's character that instead of just doing this whole I need to kill Coulson revenge thing, that he needs to be the guy to step up and like be the soldier that he needs him to be for Hydra and go through the portal. Like, sacrifice himself for the portal. Which they got information on because they tortured Fitz and Simmons. Basically, they were going to kill Simmons, so Fitz said he would help so that they wouldn't kill her. Go figure. They send an entire team, including Ward and Fitz, through the portal to this other planet to find what Simmons had seen that fucking cloaked figure is supposed to be like the Antichrist, like the Hydra Antichrist character. All the while, the fucking Quinjet that has Coulson, Hunter, and Bobby is being shot at. He's trying to like Coulson's trying to dive out of the fucking Quinjet with a fucking parachute on, and they're like, no, hold on, we'll do this. And then all of a sudden he's just like, you know what, fuck it. And then he does a move that is fucking word for word, sequence for sequence, exactly what Captain America does in Winter Soldier in that first run out of the Quinjet. He dives out of the fucking Quinjet and just straight. And they're getting ready to close the portal, which is just this tiny fucking hole. He dives out of the Quinjet through a fucking tower straight into the fucking portal.
Phil
like
Coulson.
No fucking, just no blink about it. And as soon as he goes through, they shut off the fucking portal, so he's trapped in there with them. And I mean, and then that's basically the episode. Like, then they end up on the other planet and shit like that. But it's fucking, it is end all be all next fucking episode. Like, they are on
the winter finale.
It's the winter finale, and like shit is going crazy. And it was a very heavy episode, not just in the feels, but in like the pacing. It was very much just like go, 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 go. You know, it was really good. I really liked it.
Yeah, it was excellent.
Yeah, it was interesting to see what characters stepped up and what characters did this based off stuff, and like, you know, how characters felt about other characters. And, you know, what they had to do in situations when they're left with no choices.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
It was damn good.
It was excellent.
Damn good stuff.
And again, I say, they'll shut not fuck with Phil Coulson.
No.
Like, everybody's like, oh, it's Phil Coulson. He's like, well, he's a bureaucrat or whatever. I'm like, you saying Phil Coulson ain't no joke.
You don't know
He will kill you until you die from it, because he's fucking awesome. And, like, you know, Clark Gregg's acting is just fucking amazing. Like, he's just dead on brilliant good, and like everybody is very on point in the S.H.I.E.L.D. show. Like, that's the greatest thing about the S.H.I.E.L.D. show, and the greatest thing about like Flash and Arrow is just all of the casting is just so good, and all the acting is on point. I think that's where like some other shows like suffer. Like, even as much as I'm enjoying Supergirl, I think it suffers in like some of the casting areas and stuff. Like, I think that they've made a few like not so great choices, especially villain wise. Like, some of their villain stuff has been very weak so far, I think. Like, and like the costuming stuff has been weak.
I think like the weekly bad guys has been there, but I think the overall bad guys has kind of been.
But you haven't seen much out of the overall bad.
I know, but like what you have, it has deep possibilities of being very ingrained and very like, you know, the Ant is very.
I think like whoever's in charge of costuming on Supergirl needs to be fired, because they are not doing a good job whatsoever.
Yeah, Reactron looked like shit.
Reactron looked like fucking doo-doo. Red Tornado looks
like shit.
Looked horrible. Red Tornado looked like they were, like, facially, like they were trying really way too hard to make it look like Paul Bettany in Avengers.
Vision, yeah.
And then, like, the rest of the costume, it's like, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, this looks like a shitty cosplay.
Yeah.
And, like, not even a shitty cosplay of Red Tornado. Like, it didn't fucking look like Red Tornado.
At all.
Yeah, they're just a poor job is being done
and
there.
And the acting is all really good. Like,
mostly, yeah.
What acting do you think?
It's not the acting. It's like when you say story. Like I guess the story is fine. The dialogue has issues in places. They're a little bit too much reliant on like, what, she can't do things because she's a girl. Like, I don't like when they say it out loud. Like, it's fine to use those themes, but there was the one episode, it wasn't this one, it was the one before it, where like fucking
the Cat Grant.
Yeah, and it's like, what do you think, she can't do it because she's a girl? And I'm like, what is this, like fucking Sweet Valley High? Don't say shit like that. Like, you don't have to be that fucking heavy-handed. It's not necessary to be like that oblique with your dialogue.
Well, sadly though, with the fan base is fucking dense and retarded as they are, you kind of do though.
No, but that's the shit that makes people not like the show. Like, all the stuff I'm reading, they're like, this is one of the big things that makes them not like the show, because it's too like, she's a girl, heavy-handed, oh, no, girl. And I'm like, dude, it's not necessary. We get it. Like, and if you don't get it, then don't fucking watch it.
Well, that's the problem though. There's an outspoken group of people that don't get it, and they're fucking bitching about it, and they're like, okay, well, we're having to dumb it down for you guys and stuff. So it's like,
yeah, and then the reaction of that though is like, you dumb it down for the morons, and then the people that are not morons are not going to want to watch it anymore.
Yeah. It's first season, so they're still trying to fix get their stride with it. I like what they're doing with the whole, like, constantly, like, the whole relationship between Kara and Cat Grant and stuff, as far as, like, she's a heinous bitch, but she's also being like, this is the world. Like, this is the world you have to live in. You're being judged by your cousin. Like, everything that you do is reflected on what he's already done.
I'm not saying I don't like the show. I'm just saying, like, at this point, it's like a fourth place show for me. Like, it's fourth place behind everything else. Like, it's Flash, Arrow, Shield, then that. I mean,
but I mean, for me, it would have been that way anyways, because it's, it just started off one, Like, for me, it's going to be Arrow, then it's going to be Flash, then it's going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then it would be Supergirl, because, as far as, like, hitting their strides, that's pretty much how it went, S.H.I.E.L.D. was a little late in hitting its stride, but it found it. Flash was lucky enough to get it right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I think Supergirl's still trying to figure out. And I think the problem, too, is, like, unfortunately, I'm glad they're friends and they liked each other's shows, but I feel like Jessica Jones, that's the other thing, too, is they're also, like, holding her up to that scale, too. There's
Which
a lot
is hilarious to me.
Yeah, that comparison stuff. And I'm like, but they're not even remotely.
I actually saw someone say, like, Jessica Jones is the better female, like, superhero role model. I'm like, are you retarded? Have you seen the show? Holy shit, she's like a fucking violent drunk with, like, issues about, like, PTSD and fucking, like, she's loose and all this shit. I'm like, come on, dude. That's what you want your female role model to be?
Yeah.
Are you shitting me?
Yes.
Are you fucking shitting me?
No, that is, like,
pill
legit.
popping, hard drinking, fucking loose pussied, like, gritty PTSD chick. That's what you want your fucking little girls to look up to?
Yeah, because you know what they did?
Fuck you, man.
You know what they did? They turned Jessica Jones into a female version of Logan.
That's exactly. You know what? I'm going to tell you what. You motherfuckers that didn't read the comic, this ain't Jessica Jones.
No, not at all.
Not even remotely.
Yeah.
This is not Jewel. This is not Jessica Jones from the comics. Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
The only thing that I've seen, granted, I've seen one episode. The only thing that I saw that I say they got exactly dead on was Luke Cage.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of that. Like, Luke Cage is being the thing that they're saying, okay, like, Jessica Jones is what it is. Luke Cage stepped right out of the comics.
Yeah, he's on point.
Yeah.
Like, he is on point. And that's the thing. I'm not saying I don't like Jessica Jones. I'm just saying to put them together, like, to, like, hold her up to that is not even fair because they're not in the...
They're not even the same fucking universe of Wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Like...
But we've already talked about this. So, new thing. But... yeah,
chew it back.
Yeah, chew it back. But this week was a phenomenal week as far as like the shows that we watch. And then last night, what was it? Last night? Yeah, last night on the Jimmy Kimmel show, they debuted the second full trailer for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
And the haters came out of the motherfucking woodwork.
Oh my god, it was like literally it's like now you're watching that documentary of like, the bird dropping the worm and all the babies just like blah 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 blah. So much fucking hate. I'm gonna go ahead and say I liked it.
I did too.
Like, I'm excited to see Civil War, but I'm more excited to see... like, it's one of those things, like, the more I see for Civil War, I'm still staying at that same level of excitement, but the more I see for Batman v Superman, I'm, like, getting more excited. However, it did have some things in it. I'm not going to say
that's with a caveat, though.
Yeah.
No matter what, unless it was just unwatchably Fantastic Four level awful, I'm going to be more excited for the DC stuff.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's just me personally, because I
and you still need to do a lot of
Marvel,
and you still need to do a lot of catching up as far as like in the movie section.
I got to watch one movie.
Did you watch the second Thor?
Yeah.
Did you?
I saw it in the theater.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I completely forgot.
We talked about it.
Yeah. Well, that is true, though. But, yeah, not having
Cat 2 is the only thing I haven't seen.
Yeah, and that, sadly, is a pretty integral part to what they've been doing with the whole universe.
I don't feel like I would care any more or less having seen it.
No, but like a lot more of the storylines would be understood and different things of that nature. But it was one of those, like, they made it so integral to what's going on. But yes, we are predominantly more DC fans.
Yep.
So I'm more excited. But there were things in the trailers that I didn't necessarily like. Mainly Jesse Eisenberg and his very interesting portrayal.
This is where I wish we had a webcam because you can see every time my glasses come off and I facepalm.
Yeah.
I want to kill Jesse Eisenberg so much.
His portrayal of Luthor is
horrible.
Oh, it's something. It's wow. If I was at Bruce Wayne, I probably would have just snapped his neck.
If I were Clark, I would go outside to the street and get like a parking meter and rip it out of the ground and just beat him to death with it.
Yeah. Not because he's like a diabolical madman, because he's probably the most annoying fucking
No, because he's like mincing and prancing and shit.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the fuck kind of fucking Lex Luthor are you supposed to be? How are you supposed to be fucking... Dude... Peter Facinelli playing Max Lord is playing Lex Luthor more than you are on fucking Supergirl right now. He's awesome, by the way.
Yes, he is awesome as Maxwell Lord. But he to me is the severe weak link in this this movie, because I only think he had one line that I thought was good, and it was that one where Lois calls him a fucking psychopath, and he's like, that's a 3-syllable word. Does his whole little spiel. That was good.
But, like, this awesome tension is happening in the trailer, and, like, Clark and Bruce are talking, and Bruce is basically calling him the fuck out on shit. Because, like, Clark is like, oh, well, he's taking, like, Batman's taking the law into his own hands and all
he's
this
like,
whatever. And
he's like, the people in your town are having their civil liberties, like, imposed upon, because, like, living in fear because you're vigilante, blah, 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 all this stuff. He's like,
I'm sorry, you're a fucking hypocrite. Every time your fucking Superman saves a cat from a tree, you write a fucking puff piece about it. And he's like, what the fuck is the difference? Like, you're a hypocrite. And then prancing prankster fucking Lex Luthor comes over and he's like, ooh, Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne.
No, you know what he looks like he took cues from? Mark Hamill as fucking Trickster from the first Flash series. Very fucking like mincy fucking like, oh my god, blah, 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 blah. And it was just, it was fucking
I just expected like fucking Affleck to just grab him by the head, just snap his neck. And then they go back to talking. And I'm sorry, it's time for the adults to talk.
Yeah, which they did a really good like back and forth and stuff. And it was interesting to see.
Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck had a really nice back and forth.
Yeah, and it was true. I agreed with Batman. Bruce in that fucking exchange. Like, I think it was very hypocritical of Clark to come across like, oh, you have a vigilante who's doing all this stuff, and I'd be like, what? You think because you're not from this planet, you're not considered a vigilante too?
Yeah.
Like, what makes you so fucking much better and shit? He's like, plus, you're not from Gotham. You don't know what we have to fucking deal with. Like, fuck the fuck off. And then there was that whole. It went into the war getting started between Batman and Superman, and fucking Jeremy Irons, who does an amazing job, is like, you're going to go to war. And fucking Bruce is like, he brought the war to us. Mm-hmm. Like, and then they show everything that happened from Man of Steel, and it's true.
You look at it from Bruce's perspective, what happens in Man of Steel, and like, you completely understand why he feels the way he does, and it's justified. It's all justified.
So very,
all of it is justified.
Because if you look, like, that's the thing. In the Man of Steel perspective, you saw it all from Clark's, and in that one, he's trying to do his best to, like, weather this fucking storm of, like, fucking better trained fucking commando Kryptonians.
Yeah.
But from a human perspective, it's a fucking superpower brawl for the ages in your fucking town that you have you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You never know if the building you're standing in is just going to collapse because one person knocked the other person through it. And that's what you see.
It's funny to me in a way, because it's almost like Bruce is the voice of everyone who had a problem with Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Because all the shit he talks about is all the shit I've heard that like, people were bitching about, except for the, like, him killing Zod thing.
Yeah.
But, like, all that, like, collateral damage and, like, not giving a fuck about destroying shit and, like, bringing the fucking doom to Metropolis and shit, all that stuff is what Bruce is talking about, and it's totally valid.
It is.
And even as much as I enjoy Man of Steel, I've said it's valid.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's refreshing to see that they kind of answer that in this movie with that. Like, they're like, okay, there are consequences. Here's the consequence. You pissed off Batman.
Yeah.
Like...
Then we go into, like, the fucking, Lex is getting Zod's body and doing, like, experimentational science upon it.
Yeah. And he's like, he's like, if man can't kill God, then the devil will.
Yeah.
And
like,
referencing himself.
Whatever he does to Zod, it creates what I assume is supposed to be Doomsday.
Yeah.
And then, like, there was some hate I heard. I heard actually a lot of hate about that. Sorry, my alarm went off.
Oh, that's all right.
I had a lot of hate about that because, like, everybody's like, he looks like a cave troll from Lord of the Rings. I'm like, that's not inaccurate. But
it's not inaccurate, but here's the things. Like, okay, yes, I will give you credit, like, the thing. the laser beam things is not a Doomsday thing, but the way they went about it, creating it from Zod, it would be a possibility.
Yeah, because if he's Zod, he's going to have fucking Kryptonian abilities.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. You all expect a very specific image of Doomsday. I'm looking at it right now. Mm-hmm. That is what people see when they see Doomsday.
Yeah, the action figures.
The mainstream. They see the mainstream. He's all spiky and everything like that. A lot of you, however, do not remember him when he was in the containment suit. And when he was coming out of the containment suit, he was not as fucking super craggy as he was. What you saw in that trailer is a early stage of Doomsday, which in Smallville, the comics, multiple other sources, they've showed this before.
It's an evolutionary process of Doomsday.
It's basically, if they're going anything based off how he actually is, every time he dies, he comes back and he's no longer, like he's immune to it, basically. Right. And he becomes more evolved. He becomes a better predator. That's the thing. He is basically evolution's perfect killer.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So, boom, it starts off with this phase, then it evolves, and then it evolves, and then it evolves. This is the first time they're fighting each other. He's not going to go full form. He's not going to assume his ultimate form.
What cracks me up is they're like, I heard these fucking like NIM shits fighting out. They're like, why does his face look so squat and weird or whatever? I'm like, why don't you look at his fucking face and then look at Michael Shannon's face?
He's
supposed to be fucking Zod, you moron.
Yeah, it's very
He looks
squat.
like that because he's a evolved, mutated form of the man.
Yeah,
that's what his fucking head looks like.
It's it's common sense. Like,
you bumblefuck.
They have to go through a process. Then the other big thing of fucking, so Doomsday shows up. He gets ready to do his like solar beam fucking eye blast thing on Batman, and Batman does the like put the hands up like I'm gonna die now. Like this is my doom. Big, massive fucking like doom, like dome explosion happens, and then you see a fucking superheated shield. And then out from behind the shield pops fucking Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And she has the sword and the shield, and fucking Superman's behind her. And then Superman looks at Batman and he's like, is she with you? And then Batman looks back at Superman and he's like, I thought she was with you. Yeah. And it's like, boom. I heard so much shit about a couple different things. One, she didn't talk. That's fine. Because, they just wanted to tease her in that. Like, that's the thing. This has been about Batman and Superman. Yes, the Dawn of Justice thing is happening. Yes, we know there's a possible, like, I think Flash is supposed to be in it. We know Aquaman's going to be in it. Like, all these characters. So they're kind of trying to do the, like, only let so much out. Yes, Wonder Woman is a more predominant figure, but even then they don't want to give everything out in the trailer. Then I heard other people, I don't know, maybe people who, Wikipedia things too much, saying something about like her using the bracers to block the blast and why not the shield. And I'm like, okay, well, the shield and the sword are magically made. Like, so they are, maybe not necessarily on the same level as the gauntlets, but they are just as powerful. And they tend to want to be going with the more warrior Amazonian Themysciran version, so she would have these weapons. And
I guarantee you, if she busted in front of Batman and shoved those gauntlets up to take that blast, people would be bitching about that too. You can't fucking please these internet bitchers.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Like, if you give them too much, they'll be like, oh god, they just gave away everything in the trailer. And if you give too little, oh my god, they didn't show anything in that trailer. It's the same, like, I don't even give a fuck about Star Wars, but it's the same shit that the Star Wars freaks are saying or whatever. Like, oh god, how come you haven't shown me Luke? And if they show you Luke, oh god, I can't believe they showed Luke in the trailer. Like, it's impossible to fucking please these people. So it doesn't fucking matter what you do. Is just get the fuck over it. Like, they're just so afraid. Like, I swear, in a way, people are afraid this movie is going to be good. Because if this movie is good, then it forces you to re-examine the Marvel movies. Because as much as I enjoy the Marvel movies, there's a lot of shit that's wrong with these movies that no one ever talks about. And it's because there's like this massive amount of love built up for the Marvel movies because they're fun. They are. They're lots of fun to watch. But it doesn't mean they're not heavily flawed.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're not weird variations and conglomerated stories and weird shit like that. All of these are going to be like that. All of these movies are going to be, because they never do it exactly what you see in the books, and they shouldn't necessarily, because some of this stuff just doesn't translate the right way. As much as, like, I enjoyed fucking...
Yeah.
As much as I enjoyed Ant-Man, Ant-Man is nothing like Ant-Man in the books.
No. Yeah.
And as much as I thought Age of Ultron was a good movie, Ultron's origin is nothing like it is in the books.
No.
You've made Ultron without having Hank Pym be even involved, and then when you introduce Hank Pym in these movies, he's a 70-fucking-some-year-old dude. Like, there's so many things that you can bitch about in those Marvel movies that people choose to ignore because they love them so much. Because there's all this fucking love, you know, love about the fucking Marvel movies. And I'm sorry, you can hate on the DC movies all you want to, but the DC movies are more serious. Like, the fucking Man of Steel is, like, you take Man of Steel and you compare it to the fucking, you know, the first Cat movie or something like that, or you can compare it to Iron Man if you want to, because, like, Iron Man is the prototype fucking Marvel movie.
Yeah.
You can say Man of Steel is the prototype fucking DC movie. Tell me which one's a more serious look at the character. Tell me which one has more gravitas to it. Tell me which one had more balls.
Yeah.
There's no balls in Iron Man.
That was the thing. Like, yeah, okay, they stuck with Tony pretty faithfully through the, you know, the first one and stuff, but it was like they really didn't take too many leaps with it and stuff. Man of Steel, people can hate on it, but they took that leap of like, okay, we know what's in the comics. We're going to try and stay as true to the comics as we can, but at the same time, in a real world situation, how would this have played out? Yeah,
they had the scrotum to fucking not make it all happy and friendly and shit like Iron Man ends up being. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. It's just like, you know, that's what's so funny to me, because like Marvel TV is all about the grim and gritty and shit, like with the Jessica Jones and the Daredevil and all that, and everybody's like, oh, it's a wonderful.
Yeah, it's so dark.
It's so dark. But then when Man of Steel is dark, they're like, it's just too dark. It's so dark. Why is it so dark? And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you fucking people?
Or they're like, Arrow's so dark, that's why we like Flash and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my god, you guys just need to fucking decide what the fuck you like.
You're fucking schizophrenic. Like,
yeah, like, Jesus Christ.
Like when Marvel does something like that's light and airy or whatever, like, oh, how refreshing. But if DC does something dark and gritty, they're like, okay, but if it's so gritty, what's so dark and gritty?
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy was amazing. It was family friendly. It was funny. Haha, it had all the right things and stuff like that. Oh, this was too dark. Oh, wait, Jessica Jones is so great.
Jessica Jones is such a wonderful role model, even though she smokes and drinks and pops pills and sucks dicks. She's such a fucking awesome role model for the girls today.
And I'm not saying she's not a great character. She is. I like her character.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's for what they have her go through, and it's a great character. It's just one of those things where it's like, can't have cake and eat it too, but you guys are trying, and it's coming across really douchey.
Right, and then like the fucking Nolan Batman movies, it's like they were over the top, stupidly gritty, and like
and
the
way
acting
too
is terrible and like overly realistic, and they're like, oh, they're genius, they're fucking brilliant. But when they do like a grittier take on Superman and a darker take and a more real take on it, oh, it's too dark and too gritty, and what were they doing? We went to Nolan Batman movies back. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Which is funny, because most people say they hate Superman because he's too happy, shiny Boy Scout. But when you take that away, then they're like, no. And I'm like, what the you just want to hate Superman. You just want to hate him because he has all the powers. Like, that's the thing. Like, they just want to be
in order to make him more, like, accessible, you have to do things like this. You have to, like, make his world have consequences. You have to make the shit that he does have consequences. It can't be he's gathering up all the nuclear weapons in a net and throwing it into the fucking sun. It can't be that, because it doesn't fucking work in 2015.
Yeah. Because then people are like, scientifically are like, well, what would happen if you throw that much nuclear energy into the sun? Wouldn't it like do something? And it's like, yeah, it probably would, but you know, whatever. The only real glimpse that there's been very few times that you've ever seen true glimpses into the darker side of Superman as far as like consequences and choices. And surprisingly, it's come from the animation, mainly two, the Justice League show and the
Superman versus the Elite.
Because then you got a glimpse into and the comic when he Mongol. Those are the three cases where you've really saw legit stuff, and you see the whole where he goes through the he explains, he does the whole talk, you know, like with Doomsday, he's like, you know, I have to treat everything, even the villains I face, like your cardboard, but you can take it. I can unleash, you know, I have to live my world like everything's I'm a bull and this is the China shop, you know, or in the Elite, where he's like, yeah, I could choose to be like you guys, where I just make sure no bad guys come back. He goes, but this is what happens when I do. And he shows them that. And it scares the shit out of them. It scares the shit out of the world. Like, when the world saw him being exactly like Manchester Black, they dropped the brick.
You better thank your motherfucking lucky stars that he was raised by some two bumble fucking hillbillies and shit.
You look at like the Red Sun stuff where he was raised by fucking like Soviet.
Be thankful that he's fucking happy and friendly and shit, because if he's not, he'll fucking burn the world.
Like, look what he did to Mongol. Mongol wiped Coast City, fucking shattered fucking Hal's like mind. And fucking Superman loses it and annihilates him.
He burned him alive with T-Vision.
Yeah. Like, Mongol thought himself, he's like, oh, I can go toe to toe. He's like, no, you've never gone toe to toe. You've gone like, you'll go 100, he'll go 60, you know, like.
Mongol's just smiling at him like, I know you're not going to kill me because you don't kill people or whatever. And then the Superman just says burn.
Yeah.
And he kills him.
And just wipes him from existence. Like, and that's the thing. Like, you can do these whole, like, who's more powerful, all this stuff, but it's like, those are real consequences. Those are the consequences of, like, you can call him the Boy Scout, and you can, even, I think, like, Scott Summers, they give, like, him the whole, like, he's the Boy Scout, you know, blah, 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 all this stuff. But have you ever seen the glimpses of Scott when he's let go? The power that his eyes have of the amount of just sheer damage they can do is goddamn ridiculous.
Yeah, and as much as I love the X-Men movies, boy, they have just shit on his character completely.
Yeah, which I think is a fucking crying shame, because he's one of those great characters too, where it's like all that's stopping him from completely just decimating shit or being that fucking Wolverine, I'll kill you all, is a choice.
Yep.
And he's choosing not to be that character, and people shit on him for it. And it's like, but you don't understand. Like,
but they want to call Frank Castle a hero when he goes and fucking murders people and shit and just blows up, motherfuckers and just machine guns the piss out of somebody. But they want to fucking condemn, Superman or fucking, like when he snaps Zod's neck to save the world. Fuck you.
They're like,
hypocrites.
Oh, no. And I'm like, did you not just watch the first, like, the 5 minutes before that where Zod says, I will not stop. I will literally burn this thing.
You should thank Zack Snyder for making that choice. I swear to God, you should thank him for making that choice.
It's the most realist choice they could have ever.
Yes, it's the most real thing that's ever been done in a Superman movie.
Yeah.
It is. Because that's how much Superman loves the world. That is how much Superman cares about everyone.
Yeah.
That's how much he loves the ideal of humanity, that he's willing to break his soul to fucking save you.
Yeah.
I'm getting hot.
You're getting hot.
You can just enjoy your happy, friendly fucking bubblegum popcorn Marvel movies. Hell, I like them too. But don't fucking be under any illusion that it's a realistic view on these characters, because it's not.
That's what I'm actually really intrigued to see with the talks about, like, the Suicide Squad, but I'm also really intrigued to see what happens with a solo Batman film.
Yeah.
Because, the talks of, like, letting Ben Affleck do it, like, as far as, like, direct it. And I think, I've seen some of the stuff that he's directed, and he has an amazing job at it. And I think he really gets the character as far as, like, okay, consequences and choices, different things like that. They just started filming Wonder Woman. They're supposed to be starting filming on Aquaman soon. They finally decided the bad guy for Aquaman is going to be Ocean Master.
It's funny to me. It's like, they're like, oh, why can't the DC movies be more like the Marvel movies? I'm going to tell you what, they've already done that. And you know what it was? Green Lantern.
It was Green Lantern. It was like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin and stuff. When you try to do that too much humor and stuff, the problem is, and this is probably inherently the flaw in DC and stuff, is because of the way they are. If you try to do too much of that humor, it comes across campy.
Yep.
And like,
because these characters are more like actual, like the definition of a superhero.
Yeah.
Like the Marvel characters have always been not a lower level power wise necessarily, but lower level and like they're more human. Mm-hmm. And the DC characters have always been more larger than life. Well, if you play that larger than life angle in the movies like you would do in the Marvel movies, it comes off hokey.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can do it in the Marvel movies because they're already at that level.
Yeah.
But the DC characters are more mythic. They're more of those godlike, Greek god characters.
Yeah.
And when you bring them down to that level, it just seems stupid.
Yeah. Then it gets campy, and all you do is you see like the Christopher Reeves in the 66 Batman. That's all they'll see. And that's nothing against those, because for that time they were amazing. They were what they were supposed to be. But the world is not like that now, and you can't have those characters be that now. It's just how it is.
Yep. All this hate that they're leveling at Supergirl and shit. It's like, okay, but she is that prototypical Superman character. She is the bright, shiny version of shit. And that's what you're saying you wanted Superman to be, but then you would be equally shitting upon that for being what Supergirl is being right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know there's going to be a bunch of haters. Whatever. I don't care.
And people are going to hate what I said today, and I don't give a fuck, to be perfectly honest.
And I will tell them they can all do the same thing, choke on a bag of dicks, and then go to hell for choking on said bag of dicks. But I liked it.
Yep.
I understand. I think that's the thing too. Is like,
it's not going to be perfect, and stop expecting it to be for one thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even they had to say this about the Civil War. This is not the Civil War from the books. This is not.
They won't do that Civil War.
That's too.
For one thing, they can't do it because the universe isn't there yet.
Yeah.
And for another thing, they don't have the balls to do it because there's too much real in that Civil War story.
There's way too much.
That Civil War story kicks off with the New Warriors being responsible for blowing up an entire fucking city. Killing hundreds.
There's
of thousands of people.
cyborg Thor that blows a hole through the chest of a over 50-foot tall giant man, and when he dies, his body does not shrink back. It stays that way. There's fucking what happens with Spider-Man, the amount of shit that goes through the death. Like, play fucking Ultimate Alliance 2, and that just gives you a fraction of what it's like.
Just read the fucking books, man. They don't have the sack to make that movie. They don't have the sack to make the real Civil War.
God, no. Disney wouldn't let them.
Yeah, Disney and Avi Arad and all those motherfuckers at Marvel, they don't have the sack to make that shit. They got the sack to make it on TV, and they'll make that gritty shit with Daredevil, and they'll make it with Jessica Jones. But they don't have the nut sack to put that shit on the big screen, because if they did, all the little kids would piss their pants and cry and run away.
Yeah. Like, it's one thing to watch Cap and Iron Man just kind of beat the shit out of each other and stuff. It's another thing to watch, like, Iron Man and Reed Richard implant fucking super villains with microtechnology to hunt down other superheroes and then take them to a phantom, like, dimension prison and, like... No,
they don't have the sack to put the Illuminati on screen. They don't have the sack to send the Hulk off into fucking space because Reed Richards and Tony Stark decided that he's just too dangerous to live on Earth now.
Yeah.
And let's make him somebody else's fucking problem.
Yeah.
They don't have the sack to fucking see Tony Stark and Reed Richards work with fucking Norman Osborn. Hell, they don't even have the sack to put Norman Osborn in this shit.
No.
The fact that they're doing Civil War, any version of Civil War that doesn't involve Norman Osborn, is hilarious to me.
Oh, yeah.
So
the fact that there's no Namor, there's no Charles Xavier, you don't have Black Bolt. You won't even show Black Bolt do what he did in the Illuminati, which was when he fucking just eradicated an entire fucking starship of Skrulls. Like, these guys are ones that make choices on fucking intergalactic levels for the human race, and
it's talk shit about Zack Snyder all you want to, and fucking he had Superman snap necks and shit. Yeah, at least Zack Snyder's got a fucking scrotum.
It's like, yeah, you want to give him shit, but then you'll fucking be like, oh, we're so sad, Hugh Jackman's leaving, and, and even then, we got a neutered version of Wolverine, but, like, they've, gradually let him become more and more of the, like, feral killer.
They didn't let Hugh Jackman really play Wolverine until that second Wolverine movie.
Yeah.
And even then, he's toned down.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You guys are like, oh, it's so dark and so like this. And I'm like, yeah, read some of the books, not even the comics, but like read some of the X-Men novels, like the ones where Wolverine's atop a pile of bodies, not like knocked unconscious, but like a river of blood coming out of multiple orifices of a stack of dead corpses.
Yeah, and let me tell you something else. All you little fucking hipster shits that like Deadpool, I'm going to tell you about Deadpool. Deadpool's a fucking assassin.
Yeah.
He fucking murders people constantly because he's crazy. He's batshit crazy.
And that's not even, that to me is the subpar version of Deadpool. You want to talk about like what he was really like before they did this whole like, oh, we'll make him, super funny and break the fourth wall. Like, yeah, when he first started out with like Cable and them, yeah, he was sadistically, like, he had humor, but he was fucking sadistic. And he was a cold, calculating motherfucker who just would, like...
He wasn't breaking the fourth wall. He was breaking the fourth fucking vertebrae.
He wasn't like, ooh, I like tacos. He was like, I'm going to say something witty, and then I'm going to fucking snap your neck in front of your kids type shit. And it was just like, god damn, he was brutal. That was back in that era of X-Men, X-Force, New Mutants, like, all that shit when it was fucking... Yeah, it was extreme, big guns and all that shit, but shit was brutal, too. They were fucking killing people left and right, So
I gotta like enhance my comms so we can talk
enhance
about
your crossover. Enhance your comm, John Spartan.
I have to because like this nerd rage builds in me and shit. Like when the fucking I listen to these fucking internet fucks like constantly complaining about shit that they really shouldn't be fucking complaining about.
I mean, it's what they do.
If you want to complain about something, complain about the real fucking problems. Don't just like complain about shit that isn't exactly the way you think it should be. You want to go make your own fucking movie then. If you want to make Superman the way you want to make it, go fucking make it yourself. That's what Zack Snyder did.
Yeah. They did make that movie. It was called Superman Returns, and you guys motherfucking shit
shit the fuck all over. Yeah, oh god, I remember Superman Returns comes out, and it's that fucking Christopher Reeve tribute movie, and everybody's like, oh god, Superman doesn't even do anything in this movie. He didn't fight anybody, he doesn't do anything, blah blah blah. I got news for you, motherfucker. That movie was pretty goddamn close to the comics. Let me tell you what, seriously, that Lex was your prototypical Lex. That version of Superman was pretty much your prototypical version of Superman, the happier, friendlier fucking Superman. And even that movie had gravitas and had fucking like sadness and shit in it.
Yeah. But yeah.
Anyway.
So, Flash and Arrow
crossover. What can I even say about it? It was great. It was great.
I think they did a lot better job than they did last year. Like last year was cool. The characters met each other, the groups met each other. There was that whole like, okay, let's ask that age-old question: who would win in a fight, Flash or Green Arrow?
I don't know. I've never heard anybody actually ask that question before, but whatever.
But I mean, when the two came, like when the shows came on, they kind of asked that question, and they played that out, and it was cool. And then they've been friends. So when it came to this season's crossover, it needed to be something completely different. It didn't need to go back to the same old shit, because the last year's crossover to me felt very much like
fan service.
You have Arrow on Flash. You have Flash on Arrow. That's what it felt like. It was just very too like we're in each other's shows. Cool.
This felt like a cohesive thing.
Yes, this was a very like, to me, I completely forgot about like when I was watching each show. I was like, oh wait, are they in Star City, Central City? Does it really matter?
No, because it was just one cohesive show, and that worked perfectly. Yeah. I'll get my gripes out of the way before I do anything else. Vandal Savage. I really liked the way they played Vandal Savage as a character. Like, the guy who played him is dead on. He looks like him. He acts like him. Good. But being a comic guy and a purist or whatever, in some respects, I have to point out the fact that this is not Vandal Savage.
Yeah.
This is not anywhere near the origin story of Vandal Savage, the one that they use. Nope. It's an amalgamation of Hathset and fucking Gentleman Ghost, which is Black Adam and Gentleman Ghost. Their origin stories kind of get morphed together into what they have come up with Black Adam for Vandal Savage. And for this universe, this makes sense.
Yep.
Because that's how you fit him into this universe. And you don't take anything away from the character, because the character is still the same character, but his origin story has been taken from other characters, so it fits this universe better.
And it ties things in. Because to go, and people are going to bitch about that, but man, do you realize how difficult it would be to do Vandal Savage traditional origin story? Yeah. It is fucking convoluted as fuck.
Well, Vandal Savage was a caveman.
Yeah.
And fucking he gained sentience. Yep. I think like a meteor or something.
It was a meteor.
And like basically it made him immortal and gave him intelligence, and he went through the ages, killing his way through the ages essentially. And in order for him to stay alive, he has to continually take organs from those of his bloodline, like those of his progeny and shit, in order to maintain his life.
Yeah.
And he will live. He's cursed to live forever. No matter what he does, he's cursed to live forever. He has to continue. He has to do it.
Yeah.
And like, Justice League Animated did it wonderfully with the Vandal Savage episodes they did with Superman in the Future and Commandy and all that shit. Like, as much as I don't give a fuck about Commandy, it actually works.
Yeah.
But like this version of Vandal Savage, they've taken the Black Adam and the Gentleman Ghost stories. Like Black Adam is half set.
Yeah.
In the comics, and he's connected with Hawkman and connected with Hawkgirl he was the priest, in the ancient Egyptian times when they
was
were
Khufu
and Sha'ira.
Yeah.
And fucking then they take the element of Gentleman Ghost, which Gentleman Ghost is like his afterlife is connected to their lives, basically. Yeah. Like he has to continually kill them because it's a cycle.
Yeah.
And like their deaths are, in order to prolong his ability to stay in the realm of Earth, he has to continually kill them over and over again.
Yep.
It's just it's fate. They're tied together, and they're tied together for reasons that are really fucking convoluted and hard to get into.
Yeah.
But they took that element of Gentleman Ghost, and they took the half-set element of fucking Black Adam, and they just conglomerated them together into this, what they've made into Vandal Savage.
And it makes it simplistic, and it works with the story.
Yes.
And it also explains too why he is the way he is, why he's so powerful, why he's so quick, why he can like kind of do like, I wouldn't say extreme bits of magic, but he can do stuff.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it does kind of make him a scarier person. Vandal Savage was scary because he was a long-term player. Yeah. It was never the power that he wielded. It was the power that it's a man who thinks hundreds of years in advance. Yes. Plays these long chess games, and he'll always be around. You'll never get rid of him. This Vandal Savage is scarier because, yes, he will always be around, but how do you stop somebody with that capability, who can live forever, who can move that fast? Yeah, he's not Flash speed, but his agility, his strength, his, all that shit is more than just human. He knows little bits of magic. He knows how to do all this shit, and he's that diabolical. You
just have to remember that Vandal Savage is a villain that has bested Superman, has bested Alan Scott. Like, all of the biggest powerhouses in the DC universe have been bested by Vandal Savage on multiple occasions.
Yeah, he's outwitted Batman. And
he is no fucking joke. When you live forever, when you've lived 4,000 years and shit, you fucking learn how to play the long game. You pick up so much shit.
I saw a comment somebody had made where they were like, well, I just don't know how I feel about this Vandal Savage. Like, I don't know if he warrants a spinoff, like basically saying if he's a big enough bad guy to warrant a spinoff. And I'm like, if you even understand a quarter of who Vandal Savage is, he warrants a spinoff as the villain. Like,
because he is the eternal fucking bad guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's the guy that forces you to travel through time to fucking try to find a way to continually defeat him.
He's the guy that has put like fucking Luthor and Ra's al Ghul in their place and was like, you will do what I tell you to do.
He's hoed out Lex Luthor on multiple occasions. Hoed out basically every villain in the DC universe on multiple occasions.
The animated movie they made, Justice League Doom. He was the main villain, and he found a way to basically destroy the Justice League because he did the smarter thing. He didn't take the iconic villains. He didn't take who your nemesis is. He took the ones that have gotten the closest to destroying you, and he took those ones and he used them to win.
He's not throwing the Joker up against Batman. He's throwing the Joker up against the Flash. He's not throwing, Lex Luthor up against Superman. He's throwing, like, fucking the Joker, whoever, like, somebody else up against Superman that Superman has no idea how to deal with, or Wonder Woman, or any of that shit. It's like, I don't know. Vandal Savage is a wonderful villain. Like, I've always been a huge Vandal Savage fan. Like, fucking, because he's very tied into Justice Society and Alan Scott and shit. Like, he's really been a villain that's always been heavy on my radar and shit. And I love the fact when they said Vandal Savage was going to be the main villain for this spinoff show, I thought this was fucking perfect.
It is. It was a good choice.
And what this two-parter did is not only did it introduce your main villain for your spinoff show, but it also introduced two of your main players for this spinoff show, which would be Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Yeah.
And it did them in a very intelligent way. It casted them very well. The costuming was perfect. It did exactly what it needed to do. It established everything that needed to be established.
You could tell the people that played these characters, that played Sandra and Carter, really somebody explained the character to them very well, that iteration, or they really did their research, because like the guy that plays Carter does a fantabulous job of fucking being Carter, being an asshole, like being that fucking dickbag, but he came across so like matter of fact, so smooth about it. Like it was just so natural. He wasn't like, I have to be an imposing dickbag. He was just like,
this is what to understand about Carter Hall. He's reincarnated 206 times by now. By the time he gets his memories and knows who he is, he's already Carter Hall without his memories was your Indiana Jones guy. He's your fucking like crusading archaeologist,
weapons expert,
all that shit. And then you add that to 4,000 years of past life knowledge that he gets when he gets his powers.
Yeah.
This is what he's going to be. He's going to be kind of arrogant because he pretty much knows what, more than you.
Yeah.
And then they did a smart thing in picking this version of Hawkgirl, too, because they didn't pick the, it's Shira, and they don't go into the whole fucking, Thanagarian thing, which I'm glad that they didn't fuck with.
Yeah.
But they picked the Kendra Saunders version, which is the best version to pick because she's the one who wants basically nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
Like, once she figures out who she is, it isn't like, a thing snapped in and suddenly I'm in love with him and we're eternal love for the ages. It's like, I really don't give a shit because I'm still me.
Yeah. I might have been in love with you for
but I don't
216 past lives. 217 might not be the case for you, buddy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. He's so certain in his memories where she is not, and it's very much a story of like her coming to and evolving. And man, watching Hawkman hoe both Flash and Arrow out was awesome. Because it showed it. It wasn't just like, the combined might of them would just easily whoop the shit out of them and stuff. Like, they had to get on point with each other. They had to come up with a game plan and go with it. But, until then, they had to use new skills. Barry had to throw the lightning bolt. Ollie had to use some trick arrows. Like, it was one of those things, like, they really had to. Because, like, in just a straight, we're just going to fight him, Carter whooped their ass.
Yeah, and I actually don't want to give like huge amount of spoilers on this one because it just dropped yesterday, the second part, and a lot of you guys probably haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But like, I'm gonna go back to Vandal Savage for a second. Like, I'm gonna give credit to the actor playing Vandal Savage because like when he says like, when he gets out, there's a point where he gets out of these cuffs and they're like, what are you, Harry Houdini or whatever? And he's like, no, actually, I taught Houdini. And when he says that, you believe it.
Yeah.
Like, and then when Ollie fires an arrow into his chest and he no-sells it completely. It gets him and he no-sells it completely. And he's like, you're like Robin of Locksley. I taught him how to use an arrow, but he taught me how to not feel pain.
Yeah.
And he just pulls it out and fucking like threatens Barry with it and shit. It's like, okay, this is a guy who knows everything. This is a guy who's been around for this long. Like, you believe the actor is doing a good job of making you believe that he is this guy.
And he says that thing too. He's like, you have the hubris to think that like you're gonna stop me from doing something that I've done 216 times.
Yeah.
Like, it's great. It like. The amount of stuff that they do, and I know there was people that bitched about there was too much going on and there was like not enough stuff, like there was too many things that like, Damien Dark and Merlin and like all these other people, like why did they all need to be? Everything has its place. The reason why you had like the Damien Dark and then you had like still the Zoom stuff and stuff because they want you to know this shit is still going on. We're not like with the last year's crossover, it was very much about separated. This is very much they want you to still remember while Vandal Savage is doing this and they're trying to deal with this, Damien Dark and Zoom are still a very real threat that is happening in the world.
Not only do they need to establish all this story for the new show, but they have to keep with the stories of the single shows.
Yeah.
Because they're heavy. Yeah, they're heavily deep into these stories right now.
You can't just be like, crossover time, let's drop those and, go on that.
The storyline with Zoom on Flash is very heavy into it, and the storyline with Damien Dark and Arrow is very heavily into it, and you have to pay tribute to all that stuff. It's a very tricky situation to do a two-parter like this, and they handled it very deftly.
Yeah, and they did a really good job of continuing the story in each show just enough choices and consequences that we'll see in the following episodes.
Yep.
Like, that's the thing. They did enough to keep the story going while still giving you enough of this contained story, which will be more of the jumping point for a whole series.
Yeah.
That's a tricky thing to do in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And
they did it.
And they did a damn good job.
Very well.
I will probably watch both of these episodes back to back again a couple times because they are amazing. So I think that's probably about it on talking about those. I don't want to break out too much more for them, but I think you guys will definitely enjoy it. Keep an open mind, understand the universes that you guys are watching and stuff. I think that's basically the best thing I can tell you guys about all of this is like, you have to understand this is not the universe from the comics. This is a universe that they're having to build from scratch, so you got to understand that. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know we're very nerd heavy this episode. We didn't really get much of a chance to talk about. We've been talking pretty steadily about Raw and wrestling in general, but like,
you want to say some stuff about Raw?
I gave it 5 minutes to it.
All right, we'll give it 5 minutes.
Last week's Raw was fucking terrible. We talked about it already. This week's Raw was much better,
but still not great.
Still not great
by any means.
The lack of depth in the roster is showing heavily right now.
Oh god, yes.
They did do one thing that I thought was very smart. Is that they modified Sheamus.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the show, Sheamus didn't come out with his fucking stupid mohawk and his t-shirt and his bright white skin. He came out in a fucking suit. He slicked down the mohawk and he was playing that corporate shill.
Yeah.
That's exactly, if you go back to last week's show, it's exactly what I said they should have done on the first episode, on the episode after Survivor Series.
Yeah. Really show that change where, like, I'm going to be the corporate lackey.
They also showed that not only is Sheamus the corporate lackey, but he's also got his own fortification.
Yeah.
That's separate from the Authority.
Yeah, because you don't have Kane and you don't have Big Show to back up Rollins, or back Sheamus like they did Rollins.
Yeah, Sheamus is not only the dickbag champion who's like, ha, I got your belt, fella, or whatever. He's got 4 guys behind him that are legitimate powerhouse type guys too. He's got fucking
Barrett,
Wade Barrett, King of the Ring, whatever. I mean, that means some level of something.
Yeah.
He's got Alberto Del Rio, which is your United States champion, and he's very strong right now and dominant right now. And then they've got Rusev, who they're trying to reestablish as dominant again.
Yeah, but that's gonna be tricky.
It's gonna be tricky, but they're doing it. They're trying.
It's the League of Nations.
Yes, and they're calling it the League of Nations. This is what we kept calling the European Connection.
Yeah.
And this is perfect
for
what
good.
that is.
This
is a very positive thing because putting these guys behind Sheamus, this is his group. This is his core.
Yeah.
And they're the guys who are going to continually fuck over the good guys. And that's what you need. This should have happened in a way. It's like if Rollins would have got hurt earlier, it would have worked better for Survivor Series.
Yeah.
Because if this could have happened before Survivor Series, this could have been great shit.
This could have been the tag. But
now that it's happening now, they're doing what they can to play catch up or whatever on it. But it's a positive direction.
And it's interesting too because they're playing it very interesting with Roman. Roman is becoming like that slowly. He's still the baby face, but it's like one of those things he's getting desperate. Like, you're pushing him to the point where he's like, now he's invading rings and beating the shit out of people and stuff.
And you got him showing up without his chest protector on, just in a t-shirt,
Just ready to beat the shit out of people.
Not, like, playing the part or whatever. And then you've also got the fact that the Authority is, like, taking things away. And they're being like, okay, well, not only do your actions affect your consequences for you, they affect consequences for anyone who's friends with you. And so, like, if you want your buddy Dean Ambrose to get that Intercontinental belt shot, you've got to win this match. And if you want your buddies, your cousins, the Usos, to get in that tag team fucking title match at the pay-per-view, you're going to have to win your match.
And that's building a stable for Roman, too, and which is really good, too, and it's really smart. Now, the only kind of weak part that I see in this, really, is the New Day. Is because, like, the New Day is always going to be your variable. It was funny. The New Day came out to help the fucking League of Nations and stuff like that. And right now there's like a 3-way thing between Lucha Dragons, Usos, and New Day. But it's like right now I feel like they have let New Day run too wild.
This is the danger with this. New Day got over. And they got over big. And people like it. But then they're starting to use it too much.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Don't do that because you'll ruin it.
Yeah. Like
I love it. I do. I love those guys. They're fucking, all 3 of them, absolutely fucking
It was
awesome.
a genius conglomerate. Brilliant. It's great. But the problem is now they're running around consequence free. Yeah. They're leaving out matches where they're not being counted out. They're they're just leaving any match they want, and the Authority's not saying anything. There is nothing is being said to them in a authoritative way like, hey guys, you gotta man the fuck up and shit like that. It's not happening. It's basically like they can do whatever they want and they have a free pass.
They
say, do whatever they want, you know.
The Pittsburgh crowd showed you what happens when you do this, because the New Day came out and they did their normal shtick, which has worked multiple times in other cities. It did not fucking work here.
It didn't sell for shit.
I mean, it was crickets chirping because people didn't give a shit, because like you're giving them too much of this, and you can't do it. It's like too much of a good thing. You can't do it. You can't like run that shit into the ground. This it's a weird comparison, but this is the NWO again.
Yeah.
Like this is like when the NWO started, this was a new thing, and it made so much sense to try to do something different, and like then you just start diluting it more and more by keeping it constantly on television and adding more motherfuckers to the group that don't need to be there, and then like fucking constantly WCW is losing. And this is why WCW no longer exists, because if you neuter the good guys to the point where no one believes they can beat the bad guys, then when they beat the bad guys it doesn't matter anymore. And that's what the thing is. Like, if you make these bad guys, they're so over and that no one can ever beat them, then it creates this paradox. Like, no one gives a shit about the good guys anymore because the good guys look like pussies. And they can't have that. The New Day has to lose. Like, I hate to say this, and I love these guys. Don't get me wrong. Like, every time Big E comes on the screen, I fucking cackle with glee because I love this
I love to hate Xavier Woods.
Yeah, I fucking love him. He's brilliant.
I fucking despise him as a character, but as a fucking wrestler, he has his shtick, and he fucking does it the best.
They need to lose now.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to, because it's going to keep them fresh.
Yeah.
Because having them trying to dastardly fight to get the titles back is going to be a hell of a lot more fun.
Yeah, especially with the fact of how much you've been pushing Lucha Dragons, like how good Sin Cara's been.
Yeah,
he's upped his game a lot better.
Yeah.
Kalisto's been amazing.
Fucking amazing.
The Usos are back.
Yep.
You know, you can't. Like right now, the tag division is pretty strong.
It's getting hot.
Like it's getting hot, but at the same time, they're kind of heading it. Like they're kind of fucking with it too, because like you got like the Wyatts and the Dudleys and stuff like that. That's a whole other fucking subject of bullshit.
Time again, that shit.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some great stuff coming out. It just needs to be handled right. But right now, there's some shit that's not being handled right, and it's like it's making things very like back and forth as far as like, ugh, they're trying some new things in the Divas division that make me a little bit happier, but we'll still see where that goes. Like I said, overall, show was better, but it wasn't great.
Yes.
It was definitely, but there's building blocks. I see where they're trying to go, and considering what happened at short notice,
it's a positive step.
It's a positive step.
The last thing I'll say about Raw is that I just need to tell Vince, Stephanie, whoever is in charge of creative right now, no one cares about Tyler Breeze, and no one cares about Dolph Ziggler. I hate to say this because I love Dolph Ziggler. I do. He's so talented, it's ridiculous. But this storyline, nobody gives a fuck.
It's a pass-off storyline now. It's basically like you're trying to finish what you started with Summer Rae and Ziggler, and now you passed it off to Tyler Breeze because, you know, Rusev and Lana thing happened. Yeah. And I'm like, you can't finish. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and just having them go out there and wrestle each other every week, it does nobody any favors, because Tyler Breeze, as good as he is, he's still green, and putting him in there with Dolph Ziggler kind of makes him look ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because Dolph Ziggler is about 4,000 times more polished in the ring than he is. And just, like, I know that, like, okay, on house shows, yeah, best program ever, because no one sees it other than the fans in attendance, and it gives Tyler Breeze a chance to be a better worker. On TV every week, it makes Tyler Breeze look like shit, and it makes Dolph Ziggler run in place like he always seems to be fucking doing.
Yeah, it doesn't make him look like the show-off. It just makes
him look like the fucking mid-carder
of
Doom, and the low mid-carder at that. The best thing that happened in that whole storyline was like this weird Adam Rose TMZ thing that they did, which was actually pretty fucking funny.
Yeah.
Considering that they've done nothing with Adam Rose ever. But he actually did a pretty funny job of like doing, they had this like little Hollywood Minute type thing that they did with him that was like the, you know, the WWE equivalent. He was actually very funny and showed more personality in that than they've ever really let him show.
Yeah.
In that, you know, just him making jokes about the Ziggler and Lana thing was much funnier and much more entertaining to watch than anything they've done in the ring. So just let this Tyler Breeze thing die. Let him go. Send him off against somebody else. Send Ziggler off into a program that means something, you know. I will give credit also. I said this was the last thing, but I will give credit to the fact that they're doing a good thing with Jack Swagger too.
Oh, God, last week. Amazing.
Swagger versus fucking Alberto Del Rio is the best possible program that either one of these guys could be doing right now. So, anyway, that's the end of that, and it's time for the section of shilling. I'm going to be at my very last con appearance of the year this weekend, Saturday, December the 5th, at Stebbins Con in Walter E. Stebbins High School in Dayton, Ohio.
Yep.
Me and hopefully the Basement Babe. She seems to think that she will be there. But, with her work schedule, it's unfortunate, but she might get called out at the last minute. But either way, I'm going to be there.
Yes.
I'm going to be there. Sean Forney's going to be there. World Paranormal Investigations is going to be there. And the guest of honor, Ben Peter from Season 8 of Face Off, who is a very cool guy and a very, very talented guy, is also going to be there. And then Chris Hahn, who is a former pro wrestler and actor. If you've got Netflix, you could see him in the Paul Bunyan Axe Giant movie.
Yeah.
He's also going to be there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Come on and see me if you can. It's I believe it's 10 a.m. to 4 on Saturday. That's the last con of the year, and I don't know when the first con of 2016 is either going to be in February or it's going to be maybe April. I haven't decided yet. So that's happening. Excuse me. Also, if you guys pay attention to the Facebook, you've seen that I have started on a new show where I am playing your part. I am the second in command of Geek Dig Podcast with Clint Teal, the Vengeful Jedi, on Twitter.
It's fun, isn't it?
It's different.
It's different.
It's less responsibility, which is always a good thing for me. But it's interesting to get to talk to somebody else and get a different perspective. And it's not as if you guys don't hear me enough as it is.
Yeah.
But if you still like to hear, me in a different setting and talking about different things, then go ahead and check out Geek Dig Podcast. It's geekdigpod.com and at Geek Dig on Twitter. And, of course, if you want to listen to us, you're already doing so if you're listening to this right now. But if you want to see us on Twitter, it's at Basement Fodder and, of course, Facebook.com/Basement Fodder. And check out our brand new website that I've been working on, which is thebasementofdoom.wordpress.com, where I've been putting up a few blog postings and linking to episodes of this show and our secondary show, The Todd Files, which, of course, you can also see that at Facebook.com/The Todd Files.
Yeah.
Whew, that was a lot.
Good. We'll just fan you down a little. Oh my God. That's right.
Also, be sure to check out our good friend Matt Metzger's show, Not Another Origin Story, which just dropped their Time Cop episode this week, which I cannot wait to listen to. We'll be happy to listen to that one. Check out the Stuff Podcast with our friend Michael Watson, who does the Hot Shot comic. And always, if you're in the mood for something completely different from what we do, please check out Death Becomes Her, Michelle Joy Gallagher's show, which is about dealing with death, which is a grief and death,
stuff,
and all of the logistics that are involved in it. It's a very heady show, and it's hard for me to listen to because of my very weird fears of death. But I would really recommend it as a more serious sort of take on things as to what we are generally offering.
Yeah.
So that's going to wrap it up for this week from the Basement of Doom at almost an hour and 45-minute mark. This week, I am Todd.
I'm Dave.
And until next week, the basement door is closed.
Later, bitches.
Shrifty 5! You've been listening to a Basement of Doom production. To find out more about Basement of Doom Productions and all of its family of shows, please check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/basementfodder and on Twitter at Basement Fodder.